Hey everyone, I'm going to make a short video here describing how to use Pintail's new sleeving rods. Here you have the black and white delrin, and they also make a clear acrylic. On this piece, I'm going to build an insert out of. You can see I took a scrap piece of acrylic, drilled a 1/2-inch hole in it, epoxied it in place, and now I can take this, what was a scrap, and turn it into a functioning insert. I think the ideal use for these sleeving rods in my application is going to be a piece of turning wood like this, where obviously I can't make a full usable insert and a full call blank out of one piece of wood. So I can cut off the material from my barrel and use one of the sleeving rods and a 1/2-inch hole in a much shorter piece to create what will be my insert. Stay tuned. So here we are. I figured out which piece I wanted to build my barrel out of, which end. I've decided that this end is what's going to be my barrel. I have the best, what I feel material is going to show up when I'm done. So I'm going to take this in. This is going to be the piece I use for my insert. I'm going to build the insert off of this section. And getting started is fairly straightforward. All I do is I take the insert and I set the shoulder right here. I set this shoulder on the edge of the material and I give myself a pencil mark, and I know that's where I'm going to cut this material off and start the process. So you can see that I've cut down the piece of material that I'm going to be using to build my insert out of. You can see how I measure that to see what length I need to cut it. Now I'm going to chuck it up in my 4-jaw chuck to turn a 1/2-inch hole into it. Right or wrong, I've always drilled pilot holes into my material using the slowest speed on my lathe. I don't have the best lathe, but I found that this works well for the way I build and my skill level. So now that I'm all the way through, I can pull this out, check my hole, make sure it's clean, take my sleeving rod. All right, sorry about the technical difficulties. On that last insert, I didn't video me actually gluing the insert together, the sleeving rod into the block. So here I've got another block, same dimensions, bored my 1/2-inch hole in it so that I can sleeve my insert in. All I'm going to do is I'm going to take and use 2-part epoxy. I use the 5-minute stuff. Make sure when you mix it thoroughly. If you don't mix it thoroughly, then the 2 parts will not react properly, and you can get a sticky spot in your glue, or your glue won't set entirely. So just as you're mixing it, scrape to the middle, constantly turning it, making sure you get everything off of your stir stick so that there are no unmixed portions of it. This is something I found that is worth the extra time. I use the 5-minute epoxy. It's supposed to be non-yellowing and UV resistant and all that stuff. So that's what I use. I haven't had any problems with it yet. Have not had any inserts come apart. So now that I've got it thoroughly mixed, I'm going to take it and I'm going to make sure that I get all the grooves on my sleeving rod. And I put it all down one side and then slowly turn it to make sure I get a good amount of epoxy all the way into the grooves. I'm going to drag it out all the way to the tip. And what I do is I use the end and I just slide it up to the end of the rod. Good coverage all the way. Right or wrong, I will use the extra epoxy and I'll bury some in the hole. And I know you can't see it, but I'll spin this until I get the epoxy all the way around the diameter. You can see it's already running down to this end. And this just helps ensure that I have good coverage of the epoxy throughout the insert. So from here I have my sleeving rod. I'll take and I'll push it in. You can see it's starting to come out this end. It's okay, it doesn't matter. If it gets a little tight, I always take a mallet, tap it all the way in, clean off any excess. I will set it down kind of at an angle like this, and then tap the end of the sleeving rod just to make sure that it's seated. And I will let that dry for 24 hours before I come back and turn it. So roughly 24 hours later, I have my block epoxied into my sleeve. I'm just going to put it in a .5/8 chuck. Center it up.